not downloading Pi ad blocks.
Building Minecraft is pretty much just putting some blocks together, but making your Minecraft world look amazing and pop is something completely different. Today, I'm giving you 25 or more build ideas for your Minecraft survival world that will increase the quality of both the aesthetic and the lore of your world. Which means, I hope, it'll make it look loads better. Let's get on with it. And if something in this video inspires you, do let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. And the first thing I'm going to talk to you about is paths. Now, pathways are not just a way to get from one place to another. Well, I suppose they kind of are, but they don't have to look rubbish. But they can be anything from the odd pathway block with a bit of coarse dirt to something far more complex. But what I think is really important is a path being fit for purpose. So my first really big idea is path transitions. So I'm out in the wilds of my world. The pathways are going to be almost non-existent. I've got just the odd path block, a little bit of coarse dirt every here and there. But as I start to get into a little bit of civilization, I bring in more path blocks. So we transition from a few path blocks into just a few more, and we put a little bit of packed mud. So basic packed mud is just dirt that's stuck together. We've got a little step here coming up with some mud bricks, and then we bring in a little bit of gravel as we move into a little bit more of a civilized area. That gravel brings another level of colour. However, we're still living in some dirt, we're still living in some grass, we're still living in plenty of path blocks. But then I bring in some mud brick, we're transitioning again. But you'll notice I've also brought in a few little fences as well. Obviously this is getting close to some kind of habitation. And now there's stone. We're bringing in a little bit more stone, more gravel. The path is getting gradually more and more stony, more grey, and less muddy. We've also brought in some other little bits that I'm going to talk about in just a moment. In comes some other brick blocks, and we've got some moss in there as well, just to give it a little bit of character. Then we're turning from these fences that we had before into some walls. And then we've got another path that turns into a proper road. This is made exclusively of stone brick variants, stone bricks, stone, gravel, that kind of thing. So you can see the pathway should match what it's being used for. It's coming into some kind of civilized area, a town, a village. You need to change it up from just a few little path blocks. You need to make it fit. That is a 7-stage path transition. I think it works beautifully from coming out from the wilderness into a town. Although every single stage deserves some bushes. You can never have too many bushes. Now, I mentioned it a few seconds ago, but bringing in a bit of lore to your build is a good idea. This milestone saying how far it is to the next town is always a really good plan. Any little points of interest like this always add to the aesthetics of your world. And when you get closer to a settlement, you're going to want to get some lampposts, especially inside the settlement. This is a really wooden, rustic one. We've got a wood block there with a stone wall. We've got a fence, 4 trees with a slab of wood there, and 4 lamps. Really easy to build.
I came back.
Bloodhound, 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 bloodhound.
Bloodhound, bloodhound. YB, bloodhound, bloodhound.
Lil Jeff, real name Jeffrey Lamar Harris, was born on the 14th of July 2002, getting named after his father, who shares the exact same name. Jeff's family seemingly mostly lived around the same area, on the east side of Chicago.
Bloodhound, Lil Jeff story today. Can you start by telling us where you from?
Chicago, north, east side of Chicago. East side of Chicago.
East side.
Yeah.
However, this east side is not to be confused with the official east side, which is one of the 77 community areas of Chicago located in the far south side of the city. The unofficial east side, on the other hand, which is where Lil Jeff grew up, is mainly part of the Chicago folklore, and thus its exact borders are often heavily debated by locals, with many even arguing that everything in the south side, from State Street all the way to Lake Michigan, actually counts as the east side, which would even include the slightly infamous O Block and their main rivals STL EBT and Jaro City. And on the other side of the Washington Park, also hoods like Tay Savage's Welch World. Yet these hoods are typically not discussed as being part of the east side, but rather simply being part of the south side, as in the case of O Block, STL and Jaro, or more specifically in the case of Welch World, part of the so-called Low End, another area that's a deep part of Chicago folklore, which roughly covers the area on the south side from the state to the lake north of Washington Park. In the drill culture specifically, the east side has become particularly known for hoods that exist roughly south of 67th Street, with this street and the two huge green spaces in Jackson Park and Oakwood Cemetery that border the street creating that. However, there are also also sets on the north side of the 67th Street that claim the east side, such as TYMB and Drill City, which both grab the 65th Street. While the line where the east side ends when going westwards from Lake Michigan is much more ambiguous, with the State Street and the I-94 next to it, generally acting as a sort of last cut-off point, in the drill scene, this east side is known particularly for gangs like G Herbo and Lil Bibby's crew in LMB, which is made up of two clipped-up gang sets, No Limit and the Muskegon Boys, with these initials creating the NLMB moniker, which has also been used to stand for Never Leave My Brothers. However, NLMB is located in the South Shore neighborhood, which is located very close to the shores of Lake Michigan, and is infamously known by the legend of Terrortown, a place with a long history for being particularly dangerous. Whereas when it came to Lil Jeff, his family seemed to mostly stay in a much more central area around the Grand Crossing and Chatham community areas, which generally have been much lesser discussed in the drill scene before Lil Jeff's recent blow-up. Although the area has seen its fair share of rappers since the early 2010s repping these specific hoods. Now, Lil Jeff's family has long ties to the streets in the area. His father, Jeffrey Harris Sr., allegedly belonged to a street set called 068 C Block, C standing for Champlain Avenue, with their main spot seemingly being on 68th Street in Champlain. To put this location in context, this street corner is only about 0.3 miles from the location where Jeff will eventually lose his life. And while there's not much available about this particular set online, Jeff's father was born in the early 80s, and thus he and his set were likely at their most active around the turn of the millennium to around the 2000s. What we do know with some certainty is that Jeff's family were closely connected with the very people that Jeff would later go to war with, including the person alleged by many to have been the one to gun him down, although there's no real evidence at the moment to prove who was the actual trigger man. But what can be said with more certainty is that close to the hood of Jeff's father, there would be another large hood that would end up playing a very large role in the street beefs that Jeff would get involved in. This hood was well known in Chicago even back in the 90s and 2000s when Jeff's dad was more active in the streets, and its history likely even goes much further back than that. Their hood was called the Lawn City. For example, in the classic 1996 song by Chicago rapper D.A. Smart titled Walk With Me, he lists several Chicago hoods all around the area, with one of the bars referencing Lakeside, Paxtown, and Lod City, as Smart mentions how both Black Disciples and Gangster Disciples run the two latter hoods. But while Lakeside and Paxtown have more or less stayed intact until this day, at least in name, Lod City would eventually break apart, therefore it's not included in the modern gang maps. However, during the late 90s, in the trial against Larry Hoover, the infamous founder and leader of the Gangster Disciples, or GDs, one of the former members of Hoover's GDs, who turned informant, would give a very detailed description about the Lon City's territory at the time, this territory allegedly covering everything from 78th Street to 83rd Street.
This game, you're not ready for it.
You're in the middle of this beautiful sci-fi environment. And
All the way from State Street to Stony Island Avenue. This territory being absolutely enormous by modern Chicago gang standards, however their main spots were seemingly on the 79th Street, such as 79th and Evans, which is just a stone's throw away from the 79th in Maryland that Jeff would later begin to claim. One of the highest ranking GDs of the 90s, called Shorty G, real name Gregory Shell, would even allegedly live in Lon City. Shorty G would also have a prodigy in Lon City called Will Frank, real name Frank Smith, who would later rise to the top of the leadership of the original GDs before he was given a life sentence in 2023 for allegedly organising a killing of another high-ranking GD member as part of a leadership dispute. Due to its large size, Lon City had likely always had smaller sets working within it, both GD and BD, although the area has seemingly been majority GD. However, coming into the 2010s, Lon City, like most Chicago hoods, had lost the majority of its original structure due to the collapse of the traditional gang hierarchies during the 2000s, which led to the large gangs like the BDs and GDs to break into small neighborhood sets without any central leadership between them. In Lon City, these separate sets were also becoming more independent, particularly 6 sets that were known as 8-Tray Mob, Evans Mob, Hit Squad, Mix Mob, Wiz City, and Drill City, the latter of which would eventually become Lil Jeff's set. According to Chiracologists, these individual sets would eventually break Lon City apart completely due to some of the BD sets backdooring the original GD leaders of Lon City. In the aftermath of this breakup, what's now known as Mix Mob would seemingly keep repping Lon City even after the breakup. Meanwhile, Drill City would seemingly get its name around the same time as the Chicago drill movement was started. Chicago Chicago drill music being the ultra-violent evolution of gangster rap, with beats inspired by Atlanta trap and gritty lyrics all about real crimes that were actually happening in Chicago. With this set having some of the first pioneering drill artists, such as the rapper known as Fat Smack, who is in fact the actual cousin of the rapper Pac-Man, who hailed from the nearby Drill City hood and is generally considered to have been the original creator of the drill genre before Chief Keef made it famous.
The devil might be real or a magic mystery, but I make you disappear. Poof, history. I know you sick of me, but Mac is the antidote. So if you act fruity, I have to split your cantaloupe. Hey man, you know this is Pac-Man. This is Pac-Man. Hey, I tell him, the coupe looking like a Sunday, a chopping the Maserati. Butter vanilla guts, valet popping at the party. On my heels, she was jocking me in the lobby. See the more crocodile's pocket, watch her, she gon' rob me. I swipe for a room, penthouse, we at the W. The tag your name on the neck, and on my stomach too.
Already in late 2010, Fat Smack would put out a mixtape titled A Day in Drill City, this being among the first drill projects ever to come out. Drill City is also known as DNC, or Bar None Crazy, which generally refers to them being an insane or renegade gang set. This means that they generally don't adhere to any central structure of a historical gang, like the BDs or GDs, and essentially are willing to go to war with or kill people that descended from the same original gang as them. It seems that Drill City will first call with another set from the former Lon City called Wiz City or Whisper City, named after a boy called Whisper, aka Wiz, who seemingly died in 2008 from medical complications. Similarly as Drill City being bar none, Wiz City would be known as Brain Dead. This generally also meaning that they are insane or renegade BDs, who again don't abide by any centralized BD leadership and are willing to go to war with other BDs. In the very early 2010s, Wiz City was seemingly already beefing hard with several of the former Lon City sets, including Evans Mob, Mix Mob, and A-Train Mob.
Hey man, so I don't want to talk about that Mix Mob thing, man. It's getting ridiculous, man. It's real shit, man. It's getting ridiculous. First of all, y'all. First of all, let me say that right there. There you go. Back I'm on this house arrest because my one, it's a big drill, man. Old 87 movie, man. We ain't playing no games. What a drink, listen, crazy. Frank, you already know he's crazy. What? What's that? It's just a mix mob. A mix mob. What? You got that Frank get crazy. What? You say that back. That's good.
Meanwhile, it appears that Drill City members were originally much more open to linking up with different sets, even ones that were already at war with Wiz City, such as Evans Mob and possibly even Mix Mob, which might be why someone on Reddit presenting them as having lived in the area during the late 2000s and early 2010s describes Drill City as playing sides. Meanwhile, another Redditor claims that Wiz City was getting close with the TYMB set, which is known from the early drill culture for getting shoutouts from the likes of Chief Keef. However, Drill City was beefing with TYMB, and there are even rumours that they killed one of their most loved members in 2012, a young man known in the streets as Obama. Real name Reginald Smith, the 24-year-old was shot and killed in a walk-up style attack in the 6500 block of South Drexel Avenue. The wildest rumours even claim that this killing led to one of the Drill City members getting kidnapped by TYMB before getting released for a 10k ransom. However, the consensus among chirapologists seems to be that Obama was more likely killed by a member from another set that would become very close with Drill City. But more about that later. In any case, TYMB continues to be one of Drill City's longest ops, which is at least partly why even Lil Jeff would drop a Y sometimes in his music videos and on social media. At the time though, Wiz City's alliance with TYMB would allegedly cause Drill City to separate themselves from them and ally fully with their biggest ops, the Mix Mob instead. This alliance eventually going under the moniker DCMM, or Drill City Mix Mob, as represented by Fat Smack and another Drill City member called Leaky in their 2013 song by the same name. And they would also openly claim to be Wiz City K and vice versa, with Wiz City members bound to K or kill anyone from Mix Mob or Drill City. The war between all these former Long City sets would only keep escalating in the years to come, and alliances would keep changing over time. But moving forward, Drill City would seemingly also keep certain enemies that stayed the same, such as the majority GD sets, A-Train Mob, Evans Mob, and Hit Squad, who have seemingly always stayed relatively united with each other, and against Drill City or DNC, as well as the Brain Dead BD set Wiz City, and another nearby Brain Dead BD set called MTV 079 or Money Through the.
I heard before, like, you know, all this, like, all the violence started. I heard, like, y'all was everybody, everywhere was all in one. Like, y'all used to go by line city or the line. Is that true or not?
That's it. Line City is like the whole area.
Like, for the channel,
Shadow.
how it like you know how it happened. But I'll say what year would y'all say artists broke apart? You talking about like for A-Tray and Evans Mob?
Out of these three majority GD sets, Evans Mob is perhaps best known for their early 2010 connection with the infamous Art-based set 600, due to two of their members, 600 Breezy and Escott, having a childhood and family connection to the set. Evans Mob is also known for a now classic moment in drill history, when two of their members would catch infamous drill rapper Lil Reese from Lamron, aka the Grim Reaper, with this video causing the so-called Lil Reese Poopgate, as people would claim that the video showed visible skid marks on Lil Reese's underwear. A stinky conspiracy in Chicago drill that's been debated for years, and one which fans would eventually go all in on, analysing the patterns of the specific boxers that the Grim Reaper had been wearing that day, to eventually debunk the theory and prove that it was all a bit conception all along, as the alleged brown stain actually turned out to just be part of the design of that particular set of boxers. But anyway, A-Tray Mob are a lesser known set to the average drill listener, although they too would have some rappers attempting to come up in the original drill wave, with artists like Don Darius and Murder Miles dropping some early songs that would gather some decent views. Then the music video for a remix of Lil Durk's song Competition, where one A-Tray member was seen proudly presenting a shirt which said MTVK, BNCK, and Wiz City K. Hit Squad, on the other hand, is perhaps the smallest set out of these three, getting its name after a man called Hits, real name Marlon Duvos, who was killed in 2010, being shot in the head and neck. These are already many sets to keep track of, but ultimately, these are just the sets from the original Lon City Tour. Whilst the story of Lil Jeff also includes numerous sets from nearby the original Lon City, it was during the early drill era, while Lil Jeff was still just a young boy with dreams of pro basketball, his big brother Jay Boogie would jump headfirst into the streets, becoming friends with the very people that Jeff would later want to kill so bad that it ended up costing him his own life.
Do you live in Alabama? If you have been in a car accident in Alabama within the last year, even as a passenger, you might be entitled to a significant payout.
For many fans of Lil Jeff, his big brother Jay Boogie is perhaps best known for being the profile picture on Lil Jeff's Instagram account. However, Jay Boogie is almost 5 years older than Jeff and has had a long history by himself in the streets of Chicago. His name being familiar to many of those drill fans who have followed the scene since its inception. Both Boogie and Jeff seemingly spent their early years in the far south side of Chicago in the Burnside neighborhood, more specifically in a hood called Flipside, which reps the 93rd Street, with Jeff attending the CICS elementary school close by on the 95th Street. Boogie, who was at the time also going by the name Young Khalifa, will be close with one of the most loved members of Flipside, called Tay, who would unfortunately be killed in August 2014, with Flipside starting to call their hood Tay Block in his honor. However, it seems that before Tay's death, Boogie would seemingly either move more up north, or at least begin to spend more time around the Woodlawn neighborhood, not far from Drill City's hood, with guys from a set called Chris World. Chris World is named after a 14-year-old boy called Christopher Travis, also known as Lil Chris, who was killed all the way back in 2010 by a man named Cordell Glover, Weezy, or Wee, allegedly from the EBT set. Lil Chris was seemingly part of TYMB and can be seen in old pictures with them, and Chris World would then begin as a faction within TYMB, or YMB, meaning Young Money Boys, as the set was known before they would eventually change their name in honor of a dead member called Ty, real name Edric Walker, who was killed a year earlier in 2009 during a particularly violent night where 4 people died in 3 shootings. While TYMB was primarily represented 5th Street, Chris World would begin to rep 66th Street, which Chris had seemingly frequented, even though it would in fact live near the 64th Street. Around this time, TYMB, the newly founded Chris World, and Wick City, who would later become known as O-Block, were all seemingly pretty close with each other, with their main op being sets like SDL EBT, though things would allegedly change when Obama from TYMB was killed in March 2012, with many now seemingly thinking that his killer was a man called Kenny Mack, not to be confused with the Kenny Mack from the FBG Duck murder case, or several other Kenny Macks from different sets all over Chicago. This Kenny Mack was part of Chris World, by all accounts one of the central members in that faction. According to some Chiracologists, Obama's death was the result of the guy's the aim gone bad, which would make sense, given that even though witnesses would seemingly describe the killer simply walking up to Obama, he was in fact found dead in a hallway. Others have claimed that the beef between TYMB and Chris World actually goes back